It's there. Voyager II has reached Saturn after 4 years in space. It got there just a bit early, 2.7 seconds early to be exact, after a flight of 1.25 billion miles. Voyager's journey began on the 5th smallest planet in our solar system, Earth. 2 years later, it had reached the largest planet, Jupiter. And like any good traveler, it took pictures of never-before-seen moons and huge red spots. Getting to Saturn, right on target, less than 63,000 miles above the second largest planet, has been compared to a golfer making a 500-mile putt. But Voyager did it with precision, and its cameras brought beauty to the cold ball of gases surrounded by icy rings, the 6th planet out from our sun. Our guide through the icy rings, strange moons, and storm-whipped planet, astronomer Carl Sagan, is standing by in JPL's Picture Control Center. Carl, tell us about the latest, will you?
Hi, Ted. Well, the latest is that we have just made the closest approach to Saturn. The spacecraft is now recording data, which it will send back to us at a later time. There's a whole suite of observations to be made after we pass Saturn. There are moons that will be observed close up. For example, Enceladus is a moon which in the next few hours we will have the closest approach to. Now, if we want to put this mission in a historical context, we have to imagine our ancestors who looked up at the sky, saw the constellations of distant stars, and then a handful of small objects that wandered with respect to the distant stars. They were called planets. Here is Galileo showing a reluctant clergyman his observations of Jupiter. The development of the telescope permitted us for the first time to see what the planets really were like. Here Galileo saw, well, just a moment ago, we see a Galileo picture of what he thought he saw, a planet with ears. And later, Christian Huygens, a Dutch astronomer, found that the planet was surrounded by a disk which nowhere touched it. The next picture is a ground-based photograph which shows the rings, sort of the best kind of picture before Voyager approached the Saturn system. Today, the best picture is something like this. A picture released today in false color in which we can see some of the thousands of small ringlets which surround the planet, a kind of miniature solar system composed of billions of orbiting chunks of ice in size ranging from glaciers down to particles of smoke.
Carl, let me interrupt with a question that lets me be as ignorant as I am on this subject. You clearly believe, you know that you have made a quantum leap, and you have just taken us through that quantum leap. But why? The pictures don't look all that different.
Well, the picture we just saw, in which there were huge numbers of rings, is quite different from the picture before that, a typical ground-based photograph, which shows maybe 2 or 3 rings. The existence of 1,000 separate rings, which are produced by satellites near and in the rings, we think, is indeed a quantum leap in our understanding. That doesn't mean we understand why the rings have the configuration they do. But when all that is pieced together, we will understand how a central mass with a flat disk around it works. That's of importance because when the solar system formed, there was a central mass, the sun, with a flat disk, the solar nebula, which later became the planets. But also it's an important testing ground for our understanding of the galaxy. The whole Milky Way, a collection of hundreds of billions of stars, has a central mass, the core of the galaxy, and a flat disk, the spiral arms. So we have in our backyard a natural laboratory for learning about the origin of the solar system and the nature of the galaxy in which we inhabit. It's a remarkable accomplishment.
All right, Carl, quite literally, during this period of hours, couple of hours now, Voyager is coming, has come as close to Saturn as it ever will. and as perhaps any other spacecraft will for many years to come.
Well, I hope not, but you may be right.
All right. What of the pictures that are coming in right now? What of the newest? What are you finding even in these couple of hours?
Well, here's a sampling of some of the recent pictures, just to give a kind of feel of where we are. For example, if we look at this picture, we see one of the successful searches for new satellites. There are some 10 or 12 new moons of Saturn, which have either been discovered by Voyager or discovered during the period of the Voyager encounter by ground-based telescopes. We've more than doubled the number of moons that we know about on Saturn. Here is Enceladus, a remarkable world which has the density of ice. The whole place is one solid lump of ice.
What is it, Carl, related to Saturn? It's one of Saturn's moons?
It's one of Saturn's moons. It's one of the closer in, the second closest of the large moons. And in the outer solar system, because the temperatures are so low, ice is very stable. This is an enormous snowball, hundreds of miles across, the size of a world. And we can faintly see impact craters, which have probably melted the ground when they hit and deform and disappear. It is a world totally different from anything we've seen before.
Are those four black dots somehow marking dots that you have?
Those are fiducial markers on the television screen and not markings put on Enceladus. Not as interesting as if they were on Enceladus. In fact, you will see in many of the pictures those fiducial markings called Rousseau's. Here is a lovely image of Titan, backlit by the sun, which is off to the left, and you can see the ring around it, which represents light which has been refracted through the atmosphere of Titan, an atmosphere filled with organic molecules that are raining down on the surface, a surface that we have never seen. To understand the nature of that surface, probably loaded with hundreds of meter column of organic molecules, will require some other mission in some other epoch.
When did these pictures come in, Carl? All within the past hour or so?
No, these are within the last 12 hours or so, as we zipped through a wide range of moons and, of course, the rings and Saturn itself. Here is a view of an astonishing icy kind of moon called Tethys. You can see this enormous valley, which runs essentially half the length of the object, which has been called Ithaca Chasma. And here you can faintly see in middle left a vast impact basin which was discovered late last night. And here in lower right, you can see that basin, which has multiple rings and looks like some of the Maria on the moon.
What is the assumption, Carl, as far as those impact basins are concerned, that it was caused by what? Meteors?
Well, the outer solar system is filled, Ted, with junk, debris, things the size of a house to the size of a small moon. And occasionally there are collisions. Because the solar system is 4.5 billion years old, wait around long enough and you're bound to get a collision. Most of the impact craters we see are due to collisions made in the earliest history of the solar system, before most of the debris was swept up by such collisions.
All right, before we run out of time, show us what else you have.
Well, that's essentially all I wanted to show you about the latest pictures. Enceladus, that icy fellow, is something which we will have much better pictures of shortly. But what I wanted to say was, think of the remarkable achievement. For 4.5 billion years, things fall on the Earth like those impacting meteorites. Nothing leaves it. Suddenly, in the last 20 years, a set of tiny golden spacecraft go off in all directions to examine every one of those ancient points of light that our ancestors called planets. For the first time in human history, we have examined close up these other objects and discovered them to be worlds awaiting future exploration.
All right, Colonel, let me nevertheless ask an irreverent question that I
Please.
suspect some people out there are asking right now. So what?
Well, can I spend a minute or two on the so what?
Try the minute.
Okay. Here's what I would say. A, human beings are in the exploring business. That's what we're good at. We enjoy the sense of exploring something new, and it has adaptive and survival value. Second, exploring the solar system gives us other worlds to compare our own with to better understand and control our own planet. Third, there is a pumping of high technology, for example, in robotics, which has applications to many other practical aspects of life on this planet. Fourth, we are exploring the deepest questions that every human culture has asked, questions of origins. In this case, where did the Earth come from? Where does the solar system come from? Where do we come from? And finally, it is an enterprise which is peaceful, which is on behalf of the entire human community, and which will be remembered for thousands of years. It is by far a bigger step than Columbus's discovery of America, the exodus of human beings and their robot emissaries to explore their local swimming hole in space.